Biggest day at the Combine, most exciting. Texans, they need offensive weaponry. The offensive weapons met with the media, including your boy. Let's hear what they had to say. Let's hear who the Texans met with. And let's talk about some interesting revelations, as well as the Texans being connected to some rumors. It's an active Friday night live in the locker room. Let's feast.
Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked. Got the game in the headlock.
A day, a fun day. And a very relevant day for the Texans. The days of the Texans being irrelevant appear to be over. We talked about the defense. D'Amico Ryans getting love on day 2, 3 of the Combine. Day 4, there's love for offensive players as well as one that might not even play next year. We'll get into that in a sec. This segment, this video brought to you by BetUS. Go to BetUS, use the promo code YouTube150, and you can actually gamble on Combine times. And we had someone say that he was going to break the record, and it's a guy that is from down the street and perhaps wants to return and play down the street. We'll get to that in a second. But it was one of my the days that I was looking most forward to at the Combine, and that was hearing about the running backs and hearing about the wide receivers and seeing what they had to say. I think this is a very, very suspect wide receiver class. I'm sure there's going to be gems found, but just as far as the top end, easy to see elite talent at the top, it's not there. The running back class is insanely good. And it seems like the Texans are kind of finally doing what I've been begging the Texans to do for over a half decade. That's draft a running back with a premium pick. I don't know how early that happens, but they're definitely interested in a lot of these running backs. We'll tell you who they visited with. We'll hear from them here in the locker room. Cody Stoots was on the scene as well. He talked to, we basically split up the duty. He talked to certain guys and I talked to certain guys. Spoiler alert, we didn't even bother talking to Genty because we don't think that he's going to be there when the Texans pick. And we are a local, we cover the Texans locally. So we're not really trying to waste too much time on that. But he caught up with Caleb Johnson, who's getting a lot of steam. Caleb Johnson has met with the Texans. Devin Neal out of Kansas, he's already met with the Texans a couple of times. Brashard Smith seems like someone they might be interested in out of SMU. Now, this is a guy that doesn't have a lot of wear and tear. He's kind of a smaller, like scat back receiver type. But I could see them kind of liking his game a little bit. He's kind of one of those intriguing prospects. What is it that Sean Payton's calling running backs that can catch, the Joker or whatever the hell that is? Maybe the Texans get in on that, but they're a very popular team. And I want to start with a guy who he might end up being RB. He might end up being RB1. To be honest with you, he might end up being that guy. And he was meeting with the media earlier on, Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina, a guy who was compared to Joe Mixon quite often. He's 6 foot, 220 pounds. So he's a big back. It seems like a lot of the draft people are putting him as RB1. There's talk that perhaps he could go in the first round. The running back position kind of made a comeback last year. That could happen in the draft as well. But Omarion Hampton is a guy that I have heard constantly, including yesterday at the Combine. I've heard him compared to Joe Mixon. And for me, that's great. I mean, that means that he can do pretty much everything. That means he's a true 3-down back, which is what he described himself as. And when I hear that he's Joe Mixon, I say, well, I wouldn't mind having 2 Joe Mixons on my team. Then you get the pushback from guys, a lot of smart guys who say, well, I don't want 2 Joe Mixons. I want to kind of compliment the guy. And my question is why? What's wrong with having 2 Joe Mixons, especially when you have the lack of running back depth that you do, and Joe Mixon is the age he is? So I was having this argument even before today, and I'll be damned if I don't walk up to the podium where he's speaking and he's immediately asked who he looks up to and who he models his game after. He says Joe Mixon. Then he's asked, who would you like to pair with? And he says, Joe Mixon. So I asked Omarion Hampton what he likes about Joe Mixon, and you guessed it, did he meet with the Texans? Here was Omarion Hampton this morning live at the Combine. Take it away, Omarion.
What do you like about Mixon's game? You mentioned him a couple of times. Have you met with the Texans?
Yeah, I like his game a lot, just the way he plays and stuff like that. Just he's a contact. He loves contact. He can make a miss. He can really do everything, really.
Have you met with Houston?
A little bit. I talked to a few of those coaches. Yeah.
Speaking of contact, you're one of the best.
What do you like about Mixon's game?
So there you go. He's a fan. And I'm a fan of his. I'll be honest with you. If RB1 is there at 21, and a lot of people may disagree with this, if RB1 is there, then why not take it? Why not take your top running back at 25 if you can use both of them and you can use them in multiple ways? Why are people so scared of this? Because a running back can impact a game. Like, are you just going to take wide receiver 5 in that position? Why are people scared of drafting a running back too early? Like, do the Lions regret taking Gibbs? And you can say he was a compliment to Montgomery, but I mean, if they could get another Gibbs in the round 1, are they just not going to do it? I just don't understand it. But Omarion Hampton, he's a guy that they're going to like. And the interesting thing for me, and you can say this is perhaps reading too much into it, is when a guy says he met with the Texans and he would like to pair with Joe Mixon, I think that's a little bit different than him just saying he looks up to him. Because that means he can actually imagine it. And he can imagine it after meeting with the Texans, informally, whatever it was. So Omarion Hampton is someone to keep an eye on. And notice that all these running backs they've met with. Now, if you are someone who's really into this compliment thing and you feel like you got to compliment Joe Mixon, then I have a running back for you that CJ Stroud is very familiar with. And his name is Trey Henderson. He's going by Trey now. He's not going by Travion. He's going by Trey. That's what the nameplate said. Out of Ohio State. Some people compare his game to kind of Jahmyr Gibbs-ish. Although there was another running back who compared his game to that. We'll hear from him in a second. But Travion Henderson sounds a lot like CJ Stroud too when he's at the podium. He's ranked anywhere from probably RB2 to 6, that give or take. 5'10", 208, and just very, very good in space. You saw him against Texas. It was kind of a game that it was probably the play that you point to and say that's where Texas lost the game, where they lost focus on that screen after tying the game up. But here is what Trey Henderson had to say about his relationship with CJ Stroud. And of course, what did you mean with the Texans?
I think, the joy that the Lord gives me is more so internal than external. It's just this satisfaction, just knowing like whatever happens, I'm okay. As long as I got him, that's all that matters, man. And I know where I'm headed.
What's your relationship like with CJ Stroud? You sound a lot like him up there. What's he like, and have you met with the Texans?
CJ Stroud, man, that's my brother, man. We definitely keep in touch every now and then. I know he has Xavier Johnson down there, and they've been, having a lot of godly conversations, man. It just, hearing how both of them, man, are growing up there, the culture that is at Texas, man. I really love to hear about what they're doing.
Have you met with them?
Yes, I did.
How'd it go?
It went good, man.
There you go. So he met with him too. So we got a little something for everyone here when it comes to the running backs. Trey Henderson meets with the Texans. This one's kind of tricky, though, because I don't know when he goes. In a perfect world, you might like to be able to get him in the second round. But with the way that the running backs, the run's going to go, when we kind of anticipate the run happening, we could easily see 3 backs taken in the first round. If not, there's typically a pretty early run of backs in round 2 because it's a borderline steal. Like with how impactful the position is in round 2, I mean, it's a steal. I mean, you've seen some of the best backs in the league drafted in the second round. The list is very long. Nick Chubb, you saw Jonathan Taylor. There's a big list of guys who've gone in 2 because it's just a value. And in this draft, there's some depth, but there's definitely going to be a run. And Henderson, Hampton, those are guys that are right there on the edge. Now, the other thing is, if you think that you're going to be able to get a bargain back, for lack of a better term, in round 3 or 4, you might be out of luck. And I think that's kind of what happened with the Texans last year. I don't think they anticipated that run was going to happen as soon as it did. And a lot of the guys who drafted running backs, a lot of teams, they already had backs, but they were just stockpiling guys. And that's something that the Texans are going to have to look into. I would be fine with taking a running back in round 1 if you think he's a guy. If you think Travion Henderson has Jahmyr Gibbs-like qualities, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. Maybe you have the Lions draft where they ended up with Gibbs and Laporta, where they kind of needed skill position guys. Jamison Williams hadn't really broken out yet. Amon was doing his thing, much like Nico's doing his thing in the same draft. But maybe the Texans can find their running back and tight end of the future in the first 2 rounds of this draft. I don't think anyone would be opposed to that. And there's just a lot of guys to like. And notice that everyone that we've talked about has met with the Texans. There's another one that's kind of under the radar. And I think that he is going to be the star of tomorrow. I think there's a very, very solid chance that he ends up being the star of tomorrow. And he's someone who's from around here. Jaden Blue. Jaden Blue was the second Texas Longhorn to say with a straight face that he was going to beat Xavier Worthy's 40-time record. Isaiah Bond said it first, and he said it with a straight face. He said, I'm expected to run a 4.22, 4.21, something like that, and break the record. Said it with a straight face. Jaden Blue, who was kind of on the side, another guy who doesn't have a lot of use, very good receiver. He compared himself to Gibbs as a receiver, which, I mean, I don't know how we can even say that because he wasn't used that much by Sark. Didn't really have to be because you could just get away with it and you could chase this goofy-ass 1,000-yard rushing record that Sark's obsessed with. But we saw him make big plays in big games. Interesting story from today from Jaden Blue. He was told by former Texas running back coach Tashard Choice that after the regular season, man, you should go to the league. You're ready. Like, I know what you can do. You should go to the league. Seriously. Like, you haven't really shown people everything that you're capable of, but there's no doubt in my mind you should go to the league early. How'd he respond to that after that conversation? He had 2 touchdowns in the Clemson game and bailed their ass out. And he had 2 touchdowns in the Ohio State game and kept him in the game. In between that, he wasn't used because Sark wanted to get his 1,000-yard rusher. I asked Jaden Blue if he wanted to be a Houston Texan. He said, absolutely. I got a lot of family there. It would be awesome. I love what they got going. And I asked Jaden Blue if he had met with the Texans. He said, no, but I have a meeting set up with them. So maybe it's going to be one of those hometown ones that doesn't count against the official visits. But Jaden Blue would like to be here. He seems like a guy that has a head on his shoulders that could live here. I'm very close friends with Deontay Foreman's father, Derek Day. Rest in peace. I don't think Deontay needed to be here. Another Texas guy who ended up kind of being in his hometown, near his hometown. I think Jaden Blue can handle that, and he wants to do it, and he also has a bowl claim. I told you what Isaiah Bond said he was going to do in the 40. Here's what Jaden Blue had to say, and this is crazy because he's actually coming with some very, very interesting claims along with his desire to run the best 40. Here was Jaden Blue.
Did he kind of just set the bar last year for you guys?
Yeah, he definitely did. Because all workouts all last year, that was the person I ran next to, and me and him used to go at it.
How'd you stack up with him?
I mean, he won a few, I won a few. So
he won a few.
He's fast. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think people really know how fast I am because I don't really run in games unless I have to. So. But I think y'all see that tomorrow.
Did you go full speed against Clemson in that breakaway?
Nah, I didn't. I accelerated for about 15 yards and started chilling.
Where these records
started chilling.
Records that did he kind of just
go watch that highlight of that Clemson and how much the Jets were going. And you tell me if that looks like someone who was chilling. But he said with a straight face. And it doesn't look like he's talking trash. It doesn't look like he's lying. He said with a straight face, sometimes Worthy beats me, sometimes I beat him. I think we're going to look back at this Texas team of the last couple of years and we're going to say, how the hell didn't they win a championship? They're the only favorite in the last 2 seasons of the college football playoff to lose a game. The only betting favorite to lose a game. And they're the only team that hasn't covered twice as a favorite. Everybody else has covered. The favorite in every other college football playoff game the last 2 years has covered. It's only happened twice total where the favorite didn't cover. And it was Texas against Arizona State this year, where Sark just kind of fell asleep. And against Washington last year. Kind of wild. But that's a pretty bold claim by Jaden Blue. I don't know what happens with Jaden Blue. I really don't. Does he go from undervalued to overvalued? That's very possible. It's very possible. And I'm gassing him up. But I just know that tomorrow, and it's going to be awesome viewing tomorrow. If you're at the crib, you're just chilling, whatever, just put that on at 1 o'clock and leave it in the background. Because there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to play out. But I would say that Jaden Blue has a chance to kind of steal the show. He has a pretty good shot of stealing the show. And I think he has a good chance of sneaking in today too. The other thing is, and this is where it could get real crazy, like let's just use our imagination right now. Let's pretend Jaden Blue runs the fastest 40 of all time. Let's pretend he runs the fastest 40 of all time. Let's pretend that teams are kind of seeing, this isn't even a pretend, they are seeing what Jahmyr Gibbs is doing right now. And let's pretend that you're a really, really good team on the back end of round 1. And you pretty much have everything set up nicely. Your squad's already set, but you want to kind of fill some holes. What's to stop you from taking Jaden Blue at the back end of the first round if you think he can be a good receiver and a running back? Because his value is going to be a receiver. Like there's a chance that he could be right now on the Texans roster. If used right, he could be the second best receiver on the team. He could be a more productive receiver than John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson right now. And that's not like a big deal. That speaks more to how bad the Texans are at receiver. But he could kind of fill that void. But we're going to see what this 40 is. There's a big difference between a 4.3 and a 4.2 for a guy like Blue. Either one is fast. But teams are going to start diving in and seeing what is going on with this Jaden Blue guy, because he had the confidence to leave early despite only having 1 year where he had like significant workload. And there's 2 question marks that are very clear with him: fumbling and staying healthy. A lot of times he got kind of banged up. I thought they kind of tried to use him like almost like a workhorse a couple times. Didn't think it worked out. There were a couple times where they found the good balance. And there were other times where like you would have Jaden Blue on the field with the other running back, which is crazy to imagine. If Jaden Blue's there on day 3, I think it's a no-brainer. I just don't know that that's going to happen. So it'll be interesting to see what the hell he does tomorrow and what he runs. Yusuf brought this up, and we brought this up yesterday, and that was yesterday's show. Eamon Worry from South Carolina, not only did he run a 4.38, but he had a 43-inch vertical. And we said this yesterday, he is safety 1, and it's not even close. I don't know that any of these other safeties are even valid of thinking about at the end of the first round. I've been talked out of Malachi Starks as a first-round pick. I've been talked out of it. My draft nerds, the geeks that follow this for a living and stuff, they're not as high on him. If this guy's there at 25, I mean, it's you almost just put together the best young secondary in the league, and you call it the Blob. That's what I've said. Baby Legion of Boom, BLOB. You have him, you have Bullock, you have Stingley, and you have Lassiter, and it is church for the opposing team. 3 of those guys already established. This guy's just a freak show, and he did not disappoint. I said it yesterday that this would be like D'Amico's dream. The guy's just different than these other guys. And I know that's one of the more common phrases is this guy's one of one. This guy's different. This guy next to the other safeties, it's not normal. Like it almost looks like he's a high school varsity player hanging around a bunch of peewee football players. That's what it almost looks like with this guy. And he's not going to be there. If he is, then something really crazy happened. But I anticipate he's not going to be there. I don't think it's even possible. I don't know how you let that happen. Speaking of the Pee-wee thing, did you see the Elijah Simmons thing from the University of Tennessee? I thought this was funny. And this is kind of a localized J.J. Watt story. So you can see right here, J.J. Watt says, this is when the Pee-wee players went up with Roger Goodell in 2019. And the kid's back here. And J.J. Watt says, can we draft number 72 from the Tennessee Metro High School team? Kid looks like a beast. And I'll be damned, there he is. Elijah Simmons. He's in this year's draft. Life comes at you fast. That's really, really funny stuff from JJ. And good catch by whoever the hell's on the social media team for that catch from the NFL's social media squad. I thought that was interesting. So that's really all the running backs, although there was one more that a lot of people were very intrigued by. And I was waiting for him at the podium. I heard one of the staffers say, okay, podium 4 has been canceled. He used the word canceled. And it was supposed to be Cam Skattebo from Arizona State. It was supposed to be his podium. So I immediately just said, okay, well, I'm not going to hear from him. I'm just going to go with Cody, and we're going to prepare for the live stream that we did earlier today, which kind of got hijacked by Deebo Samuel rumors, which we'll get to in a second. But I guess Skattebo went later. They had him going all over the place. And I went back in the room and I saw he was doing the car wash. He did like 3 interviews back to back to back. And I just figured, hey, I'll just wait and I'll just talk to him for a sec and see what's going on. And he was walking to his next thing. And you know what I asked him? I said, hey, what's up? He's like, oh, I'm doing a bit. I'm like, no, I'm just asking you because I was at your podium. Did you visit with the Texans? And he said, yes, he did. So Cam Skattebo did visit with the Texans. And when I say he tells me, he actually just told me. I hate when people go to a podium and they say, yeah, he told me. He kind of just told the whole podium. James Palmer's the king of that. But yeah, I was literally the only one there. But he did say he visited with the Texans. I'll tell you this. I'm not as high on him. I think he's clearly a day 3 guy. As much as I'm expecting Jaden Blue to steal the show, I think this is going to be a rough combine for Cam Skattebo. I think it's going to be rough. And look, some guys, they thrive and they continuously make people look stupid for doubting them. I know that's kind of the Skattebo brand right now. The lack of D1 offers, belief that he couldn't be the guy, developing into the guy, and now assholes like me are questioning whether or not he can be an NFL running back. I don't think he can. I don't think he's going to be a very good NFL running back. That's me. I'll admit it. But he did visit with the Texans. So I guess that's exciting for some people. On the super chat, swarm into the super. You ain't never hate. Swarm. Evan says, Damn it, Bobby. Y'all just don't want this to die, do you? Damn it, Bobby. He says that DJ Amazing says, are we 2 players away from a Super Bowl? What does that mean? I've never understood that. What do you mean? Like, you're talking about the reference of the Lions. Were the Lions 2 players away from a Super Bowl when they got Gibbs and Laporta? I don't think we were taking them that serious yet. But I don't understand this. There's a couple things I don't understand that get asked during the draft. The one that I talk about the most, I'm always bitching about the whole notion that, we need this, we need that. And sometimes what you need is not there. So I'm always fascinated by that. But what does it mean? Are you 2 players away from a Super Bowl? So what do you do? Like, what do you don't draft the players that can impact your squad the most? I don't get it. And I heard the worst that it's ever said. And I got into it with John McClain, the great John McClain, the legend, about this, is when there was a notion that you don't draft a quarterback because you're not a quarterback away. That's asinine. There's drafts where you can't even find quarterbacks. You find yourself in no man's land. So you gotta get the best players that you can get. Are they 2 players away from a Super Bowl? I don't know. I don't think so. But I don't think that's anything that you have to think about when it comes to whether or not you draft and how you draft. That's Super Bowl or not. Just they draft. They're willing to make moves that might be beneficial 2 years down the line. They're willing to make moves that are immediate. But being 2 plays away from the Super Bowl, I don't think it should really. I don't think it should really impact anything for the Texans. I don't think that's anything that they should really worry about at all. It's not. It's not even a concern. Evan, again, give the people what they want. Damn it, Bobby. We need to change Nick Cayley's name to Bobby Slowick, or Bobby Cayley, just so that we can still have that. Hopefully he doesn't screw up, though. So that was the running back portion, which brings us to the questions of the day. I have 2 draft questions of the day here in the locker room. You can respond in the comments, or you can respond in the chat. But I'm going to start. I'm going to work my way up, because there was an interesting development during the wide receiver portion that kind of had me thinking. Where are the Texans when it comes to their most heartbreaking loss of last season? And does it impact their future plans and opportunity of improving one of their biggest needs? We'll get to that in a sec. But question number 2 is, do you think the double mix-in theory is as dumb as I do? The notion that if Omarion Hampton is your RB1, but he's too much like Joe Mixon, you stay away from him. I think that's the dumbest thing that I've heard this whole draft process. And there's a lot of smart people saying it. I don't get it. Because when I think about trying to perfectly complement a running back, sometimes it just happens that way. I don't think the Texans should shy away from any style. Like if they like what Henderson can do, or they like what Blue can do, or they like what any of these other receiving running backs can do, I have no problem taking them. But if you think that someone is better than those guys and they're higher up on your board, you don't shy away from them because you're scared of having two Joe Mixons. That's incredibly crazy to me. And I've just seen that go wrong so many times. So many damn times I've seen that mindset go wrong and just kick teams in the freaking nuts when you start overthinking stuff like that. By the way, this video brought to you by BetUS. The casino is popping. Basketball betting is popping, and Combine will be popping as well. YouTube 150 if you want to get in and you want to bet on the NFL Combine. You'll get 150% bonus up to $2,000. And you can also have some fun in the casino. Hold you over till football season. But this Mixon theory, like I think about this, and I'm thinking like millennial times where the Giants have Tiki Barber and they decide, oh, we want to compliment him with Rondane. Keeping it real gone wrong. The Dallas Cowboys have Marion Barber. They decide in a very deep running back draft, oh, we got to compliment him with Felix Jones. Felix Jones never was even the top back at Arkansas, but you know what? He kind of compliments Marion Barber nice. God forbid that we have two guys who can score double-digit touchdowns and just wear down a defense. It's a dumb theory. It's a really dumb theory. I don't like it. It's not something that too many people say, but a lot of smart people do say it. Like, oh, he's too much like him. I don't care if he's like him or not. It's not basketball. Like it's not like they're going to be out there. It's not like you have 2 point guards on the field. So if I can get 2 Joe Mixons, give me 2 Joe Mixons. And we'll figure it out. That's the dumbest theory ever. That's question number 2. We'll get to question number 1 after we talk about these wide receivers. Emeka Egbuka, most popular guy at 25. I don't think he's going to be there. You might almost be rooting for him to run a bad 40 tomorrow, assuming that he's going to run. I didn't get that portion of his media availability, but he has a nice relationship with CJ Stroud. He sounds a lot like CJ Stroud, much like Henderson. This was what he had to say about CJ and about whether or not he, you guessed it, met with the Texans.
All my 4 years throughout college.
What's your relationship like with CJ Stroud, and have you met with the Texans?
I have met with the Texans. We had a great meeting. That was formally. And, CJ and I, obviously I have a lot of love for the guy. Just to see what he's doing with his fate, too, at the next level. That's something that, I'm just so proud to be able to see as a friend of his. And, our relationship definitely runs deep. I think that, you have a special connection when you're catching passes from him and going for 1,000 yards for a super memorable season. So playing with him was amazing times for me.
All right. I mean, you figured that he would say that, and that was obvious. But it's flirting with waste of time. It's flirting with, just based on this receiver draft, at least right now. Now we'll see what it looks like whenever they start running drills and everything, and what his 40 time is. But it almost seems like he might not be there, and there might not be the opportunity to draft him. So we'll keep a close eye on that. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't like the good receivers, like the really, really good ones, probably going to be off the board. There's probably three of those. And then the Texans are going to have to figure out what they want to do at receiver. Luther Burden, he will not say who he's meeting with, but he says the system he was in did not allow him. And this is the kid out of Missouri. A lot of people pretty high on him. He could be intriguing at 25, But he said the system he was in did not allow him to fully display the routes that he is capable of running in his full skill set. So Burden, he wouldn't say whether he met with the Texans or not. Eric Ayamaner out of Stanford, another intriguing guy. He had a formal visit with the Texans. Stoots asked. So you have that. Jack Besh out of TCU. He met with the Texans. And then you have some guys that are kind of at the bottom of the wide receiver group that I did find kind of interesting, like as far as filling the bottom of the roster and perhaps special teams. One of them was Brew McCoy, who, how old is he now? I feel like we've been talking about Brew McCoy for quite a long time. Very sharp dude, very impressive dude. He is now 24 years old. He's going to turn 25 in June. So he has been in college for a long ass time. I think this is a guy that's probably going to go undrafted unless it's like like a round 6 or 7 pick. But he's going to be 25 years old when the draft happens, which, yeah, he can't really stay healthy, but he's open to playing special teams. Was originally going to go to Texas, then went to USC, then went to Tennessee. He's been all over the place. But there's another one that I think Frank Ross might like, and it's Dominic Lovett out of Georgia. He was one of the most entertaining guys today, and he was talking a lot about special teams, and I kind of looked up his relationship with Kamari Lassiter, and this is what he had to say about Kamari Lassiter and the Houston Texans and whether or not he would like to play with Lassiter. This is how close they are. Here is
relationship like with Kamari Lassiter
and
with the Texans.
3. I just called 3 yesterday just to talk to him. You know, that's my guy. And have I met with the Texans? Nah, I haven't. But I would love to though. So, you know, play my boy 3. But I called him yesterday. You know, he had wished me number luck. I had called him because I was feeling a little nervous, and he told me just go out there, have fun is the main thing, and just be myself. So I appreciate that.
Now, he's a guy who likes to play gunner. He likes to play special teams. He was talking about downing punts and stuff like that. Maybe they can find other ways to fill the Chris Boyd role, like the special team stud. I don't know. But he seems like a likable guy. Could be an undrafted guy. A lot of talent, though. Drop issues, for sure. I think he probably goes late day 3, but he does seem like a guy that they would like. And at the bottom of the depth chart, if you love special teams as much as he does, the Texans, they've been really, really good at special teams the last few seasons. They could use as many of those guys as possible. And it's not like he's a complete lost cause on special teams. So I was kind of just fascinated by the personality and the fact that he was really into the third phase. But I don't know whether that goes down or not. But very likable dude as well. As far as other stuff with the receivers, this was an interesting observation, and this was the interesting love that I noticed. There is a lot of people that look up to Tank Dell. Tank Dell is really, really, really popular. Extremely popular with the Young Bucks. And I don't know what it is, but Stoots was on one side of the media availability. I was on the other side. And on the far side, I was at Tez Johnson out of Oregon. I was at his thing, and he was talking about how much he loves Tank Dell, how much Tank Dell has helped him through this process, how much he looks up to him, and all this type of stuff. I thought that was cool. And I kind of walked in on the back end of that. Thought that was cool. Shook my head. Walked to the next podium, which is where Matthew Golden was. And there were a lot of Longhorn, Georgia, and Ohio State beat writers. Good God, there were a lot of them. They rolled deep. But Matthew Golden was there. And Matthew Golden was talking about how much he loves Tank Dell and how much he idolizes what Tank Dell does. Then I pull up my phone and I see that Stoots has said that Xavier Restrepo out of Miami is talking about how much he admires Tank Dell's ability to get open on the second level as a wide receiver. So that's 3 guys in a matter of like 8 minutes, not even sitting by each other, not even hearing what the other is saying, giving Tank Dell some love. I thought that was cool. Between the D'Amico love that he got yesterday, the unsolicited love that he got, and then the Joe Mixon love, and then the Tank Dell love, there's a lot of the Texans are kind of becoming a popular-ish team. They're becoming a popular-ish team. Now, are they popular enough to acquire one of the guys that we considered to be one of the best players in the league a few years ago? And should they consider that? We'll get to that in a sec. But first, I want to tell you an interesting story about returning home from the combine. And people ask, why aren't you staying until Sunday? After the interviews, there's no point. Like, if you go in the stadium and you watch these drills, it's a waste of time, especially with how good the TV production is. You can't tell what the hell's going on. So most people are coming home after the interview part. I'm going to be posted up watching it just like y'all. And it is going to be absolutely bananas. I feel like, I don't want to say it's like the Super Bowl. I don't want to take it too far, although I've been known to take it too far. But it's going to be exciting viewing tomorrow. This is fun. This is a fun watch, especially through the localized lenses that I function with, and I think many of you probably function with. But it's going to be a lot of fun. But let me tell you about a really interesting thing that happened to me on my flight back. So today's combine, we already talked about the freakish display by Sean Taylor Jr. At the safety position. Another guy that really benefited himself was a local guy, Aggie, Shamar Stewart. Shamar Stewart had a hell of a day today. I mean, just as freakish. Like, if he's top 3 producer at the combine, and he completely did his thing, and he made a hell of a lot of money today. Like, the numbers that he put up were absolutely insane. And the first article that you see if you type in Shamar Stewart is Shamar Stewart works his way out of potentially being a Philadelphia Eagle. That was what was said. This is a guy who's 6'5", 267. His 40 time was 4.6. His broad jump was 10.9, and he had a 40-inch vertical. He was 281 at the Senior Bowl. He's 267 now. So he's obviously been in shape. Now, he was asked why he didn't get a lot more sacks. And he basically said, it was a defense. Like, it was just kind of an unselfish defense, and that's what happened. And I think this guy's going to go early. So I was at the airport, and I was waiting to get on my flight. And I look over, and I see a dude in his combine gear. And I'm like, oh, okay, this guy must be a scrub. He's wearing his combine gear walking around. Maybe he wants people to notice who he is. And I'll be damned, it was Shamar Stewart. Getting on the plane, same plane as me. In the combine gear. Everything that he wore, everything that he ran that 40 in, everything he did the broad jump in. And it might make sense because my flight was at like 5:30, 5:40. I think he got done running at we looked over, I think it was like 3. I think it was like 3 o'clock. Because I remember where I was. I was on Radio Row, and I was sitting with Jake Asman and Stoots, and we were like, holy crap, Stewart, look at that 40 time. So maybe he just wanted to get his ass home. He had someone waiting for him, but he was wearing his combine gear, and he was on the plane. And I saw him at the baggage claim, and I just I didn't want to bother him or anything like that. I just said, hey, I'm a Texas fan, but good fucking stuff today. That's the exact quote. I said, good stuff. I respect the hell out of that. That was great, man. You should enjoy that. And he's like, thank you very much, sir. I'm sir now too, man. Like it's official. Like with all these prospects, I'm sir. It's happened. I thought that maybe I would look forward to the day when I was sir. I don't know, man. Kind of makes me feel a little bit old, but hey, that's what happens. These aren't millennials anymore. I don't think they've been millennials for 15 years. See, I'm even aging myself. I'm earning my sir title. But he did his thing. Now, there was an interesting observation. I don't know the backstory here, but not only was he in that that outfit. And by the way, I would sleep in that if I earned millions of dollars doing what he did. But he had a driver taking him somewhere. I'm not sure where he was going. But he had a 49ers backpack. And I don't know if there's any background in that or anything like that. But he had a 49ers backpack, and he still had his combine gear on. I think that's kind of interesting too. I don't know, like, why is that? Why do you think that he had a 49ers backpack? Don't quite get it, but he did. And he made a hell of a lot of money today. And he was just flying. Southwest. He's on the Southwest flight. Might not have to fly Southwest no more. Although, why would you not want to? Very convenient. But that's the combine tail there. Deebo Samuel. Should Deebo Samuel be someone that the Texans consider? Cody Stoots is completely out on him. I'm intrigued. I just don't know that you have to trade for him. I don't know that you have to trade for Deebo Samuel. And I would hope that he can pull a Shamar Stewart and lose some weight in a short time as well. I was talking to a guy that covers the 49ers, and he said it's just going to come down to whether or not he respects the coach and will actually be in shape. I would not completely dismiss Deebo Samuel. I don't think this draft creates much opportunity for wide receivers, quite frankly, at the top end. So if you get him as your complimentary guy, and then next year, maybe when there's a better wide receiver group, you can improve, and you can still draft wide receiver this year, add some more free agents. I don't think Deebo's the craziest thing. Now, how is he used? Stoots doesn't like if he's just a receiver. He wants to use him as the running back receiver and the kind of the dual skill guy that he was a few years ago. I don't know that happens. Is he washed? He looked the part this year. He was dropping balls. He was whining. He was complaining. I would much rather have Cooper Kupp than Deebo Samuel. I don't know what the Cooper Kupp situation is now, though, either. He said he was granted permission to have a trade. Does Matthew Stafford seems like the type of guy that might be like, hey, I'll redo my contract to where we got to keep Cooper Kupp because I like Cooper Kupp that much. I don't think what we were saying about the Rams 4 weeks ago, whenever we heard the first the Kupp news, I don't think it's this. I don't think you can look at it completely the same. Now they still do have Puka, who's better, and they still do have Whittington, who they like, and they still need to figure some stuff out cap wise. But I think the Rams, what was being said a month ago, kind of changes with Stafford, so we got to keep an eye on that. But the Deebo Samuel, I could go either way. I don't think it should not prevent you from looking at a wide receiver, an older receiver, and we don't know what Nick Caley thinks of him. Maybe he comes in motivated. He's still kind of older. He still had trouble staying healthy. Don't know about that. The Deebo thing. Chase says he's fat. He's fat shaming. He's a fat shamer. Chase, you are a fat shamer. He says he's out on him just based on that Super Bowl picture where he had the belly. Hey man, off season, sometimes you play your way into shape. But the Debo thing is interesting. We talked a little bit more about it earlier today on SNL. I could go either way. Next draft question. We've already asked one, and that was, do you think the Mixon theory is as dumb as I do? Question number 1, and this goes back to the Tank Dell love and the current state of Tank Dell. And I think this is something that we really got to think about. And I think when we think about this, it's kind of an interesting exercise, because I want to ask this question, and this is kind of how I prefer to have discussions in the chat. And when we talk, I'm going to ask you what you would do. There's two types of ways of looking at these types of things. It's, what do you think the Texans will do? And what do you think they should do? Like, what would you do if you were the shot caller? And that's the beauty of watching sports. That's the beauty of following it. We all play fantasy football. We all deal in hypotheticals. People who say, "Oh, I don't want to talk about hypotheticals," then what the hell are you doing in a sports chat room if you don't want to talk about hypotheticals? Why don't you go to McDonald's and protest like fat foods and stuff and unhealthy foods? If you're going to go in a sports chat and say, "I don't want to talk about hypotheticals," why are you talking about that? Because we're talking about sports. But my question is, as I slide down this soapbox, my question is, how does Tank impact drafting? And I think there's two lines of thought when I ask this question. In 2 seasons, we've seen Tank Dell get hurt, and we've seen him have significant injuries. I know it happens in football. I know there's guys who aren't small that get injured and have trouble staying healthy. So I'm not sitting here saying that that's the reason why. And quite frankly, I think the one in 2023 was kind of a fluke. I think it could have happened to anybody. I thought it was weird that it was being talked about that it was a Tank Dell thing. And even this one was kind of a fluke. Wayne runs the wrong route. He ends up getting hurt. I don't know if it's a size thing. It kind of looked like that probably wouldn't have gone well for anybody. But my question is, do you think, like when we're talking about Tez Johnson and we're talking about some of these other smaller receivers, do you think the stuff that happened to Tank Dell and the fact that he's suffered 2 serious injuries, when the biggest concern about him heading into the league was whether or not he could stay healthy, do you think that comes to mind or even prevents the Texans from looking at a guy like that to add? Do you think that D'Amico and Nick are kind of out of the 150, 160-pound receiver business because of what happened with Tank Dell and how it's gone the first 2 years? It has to at least be brought up. It has to be at least brought up. And again, I'm not saying it's the why, but I'm just saying, when you made that Diggs trade, you made that trade, and a large part of it was you assumed that you were going to have Tank Dell on his rookie deal and you were going to still have Nico Collins. And the question marks that you've had, they haven't gone your way. They've gone negatively. So does that prevent the Texans from drafting that style of wide receiver, that size, like a Tez Johnson and like some of these other guys? The other question that I have is, when they're drafting a wide receiver, whether they're doing that and drafting a small guy, or whether they're thinking about when to draft a wide receiver. When Nick Caserio talks about the 2-year window, and he talks about drafting Blake Fisher because of a 2-year window, and we look at 2-year windows, we don't just look at 1-year windows. Is Tank Dell really part of their plans in 2 years? Obviously, if Tank Dell's ready to go, he's going to get an opportunity. And assuming that he misses the upcoming season, he's going to be on the final year of his rookie deal. And who knows where he'll be on the depth chart, but they're not going to get rid of him. But do you think that he factors into their plans? In other words, do they think that Tank Dell is going to come back and be a productive number 2, number 3 receiver? Like, is that realistic to do? Can you function like that? Or are they already thinking, okay, not only is wide receiver arguably, I wouldn't even argue, I would say it is, But our biggest need right now, it's going to be our biggest need in 2 years, assuming that because we don't anticipate and we don't expect much from Tank Dell. Now, some will say, well, Tank Dell, comeback season, all that. And I'm sure he's going to put out some workout videos and people are going to get hyped. I don't think it's fair to the young man to even expect too much. And I just wonder if behind closed doors, when the Texans talk about Tank Dell, number one, are they scared to draft smaller receivers? And number two, are they functioning as if they're going to have a wide receiver in his 20s like Tank Dell? There's no way they think the same about what Tank Dell can do for their team now as they did last year. That's common sense. I'm not breaking any news there. But do they think there's going to be some type of recovery? A lot of times when a guy gets hurt, it's like, oh, well, he'll be back and we'll see what happens. You've got to wonder if Tank Dell's ever going to be able to play football the way he played football before. That's not disrespectful. That's just common. You saw the reaction when he got hurt. You saw the pictures. You saw what it looked like. You hear the way they talk about him. I mean, when D'Amico's asked about him, the first thing he says is, yeah, his spirit's good. Because that could very well be a career-ending injury. So I just wonder how they think about the Tank Dell thing. Because I personally think they should function as if Tank Dell's never going to play football again. And if he ends up playing football again, great. You put together the best wide receiver room that you possibly can, and you function as if you're never going to get Tank Dell back, as if he's not even on your roster right now. Because he's not going to be on the field at the start of camp. I don't think any of us anticipate that. Do I think you should be scared of drafting small receivers? I wouldn't be. I think, he got rolled up on 2 years ago. This wasn't really his fault at all. So the answer to question one, I don't think they should be scared of small receivers. Matter of fact, if they can get someone to fill that Tank Dell role, maybe that ends up kind of being your long-term guy. If it's a Tez Johnson or whatever. I don't think those guys should be dismissed, but I damn sure think you should function as if Tank's not going to play. That's just me. So who knows? RK says Cecil Shorts had the same injury that injures. No, he did not. No, he did not. And I know Cecil. Cecil's my dog. Yes, he had that injury, but Tank Dell had another injury too. He had the Cecil Shorts injury and another. So you're right. I'm actually adding to your point. I'm agreeing, which could be considered a confusing contradiction. But Tank had the kneecap and the Cecil injury. So it was actually worse than Cecil's. But I've heard Cecil talk about that a lot. But it was actually worse. So your point is valid. But yeah, it's tough because you hear people say Tank Dell comeback season, and I'm like, man, if this guy can just get to where he can run around, to where he can at least maybe even go out there and stretch or something like that, that's fine. But I know that there's you think that you're being supportive. It's almost unrealistic to even put that, and it's almost unfair to even put that on Tank Dell to come back and be anything close to what he once was. It's tough. And that was a rough injury. Really, really rough injury for Tank. But that's just kind of the takeaways from today. Combine tomorrow going to be insane. We're going to be on Blue Watch. We're going to be on Running Back Watch. Consume all the information you can, generate the opinions, and then we're kind of going to have a transition on Monday. It's kind of going to transition like the off season, and that's what's crazy about the roller coaster ride of the off season. So right now it's combine time, Senior Bowl. You get in draft mode, but we're going to slowly creep towards free agency because that's the big step. Because the reality of it is the draft is 2 months away. So got a lot of free agency, a lot of holes to fill, which is going to give us a more clear picture of the draft. as well as this combine. This combine is going to give us a clear picture. Who knows? Maybe the Texans make a trade soon. So it's been fun. Draft. I still think that kind of talk comes up, but we kind of step away and we get into offseason trades, free agency, because that's going to smack us in the face quickly. That's not far away. So we get to that, and then we get to the draft. But this weekend, consume as much combine as possible. We'll put a bow on that on Monday. Maybe this weekend we might live stream tomorrow and talk about what goes on, depending on if there's any big news or anyone sticks out at the combine. But then it's off season and it's free agency and it's all that type of stuff. So it'll be a lot of fun. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Subscribe, like, right along. Most importantly, always remember when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Shout out to BetUS. Promo code YouTube 150 if you want to gamble on the hoops or on the combine. Appreciate y'all for coming through.
In the headlock, localized every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not too plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up, we number 1. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to